What's up, guys? It's Elwich Low Tech. This is a quick comparison of the K3 and the K1 by Pentax. So I've had the Pentax K1, the new full frame, for a little over a week now. Went to a wedding, did a lot of shooting there, obviously, and I've really got a chance to figure out the feel of the K1 versus the K3. And there are a lot of things I like better about it. Obviously, for the most part, most people will prefer the K1 if you can afford the more amount, just because it's going to be have a lot more of the features that people are looking for nowadays. The K3 is still a good camera. You really can get some good pictures out of it, but there are some things to note that you wouldn't necessarily see inside of the spec sheet list. So taking a look at the front of the camera, and I apologize for the video quality, obviously, since I record all my videos on these cameras, and so I have to do this another way. So you can see the K1 is a little bit taller here. Overall, I thought this wouldn't be that big of an issue, but I actually prefer the height of the K1. The main reason is, so when you hold a K3, your pinky finger right here has not much to grab on. You can kind of half grab, something like that. So, I mean, I guess you can kind of scoot your fingers up and try to get more of a grip down here, but naturally, you kind of grip it with two fingers, and that's all you really have. If you look at the K1, let me switch the sides because I'm right-handed. At the K1 here, the extra height gives you a nice grip all the way to the bottom, so your pinky finger isn't kind of falling off the edge, which is really necessary since this is a heavier camera than this one is. But it's really nice to be able to actually use my entire hand to grip the camera, whereas this one, I had to kind of shuffle my fingers around to kind of get what I wanted out of it. It would seem like the screen is bigger on this device, on the K1, but in reality, they're pretty much exactly the same size. Let's turn these things on. There's no lens in these right now. There is a lot of extra black space down here on the K1 that you aren't getting on the K3. So they didn't necessarily put a bigger screen onto it. They just, put a little more bezel around it. They did do other things. Obviously, they have, this is a tilt screen, so now you can kind of see how things are and tilt it all over, things like that. So it's not necessarily like they wasted the extra real estate, but they could have put a bigger screen on here. There are some button changes in terms of what you can do to get to things. Previously, if you wanted to look at old pictures, like on the K3, there's the review camera picture here. Hit OK, so you'll hear. And look, it's the K1 unboxing. So to view your pictures right here, and if you want to delete it, press the button here, and you can delete. Inside of the K1, whereas that was the K3, on the side of the K1, you can still view all the pictures the same way, but now they're in two places. So if you click here, now the view camera button's here, the delete button is still up here. So the delete button is still the exact same place as it is on over here, but the view button is kind of switched around. So the main reason why is they put the live view button here instead. I personally don't like it there, but it's okay. In the K3, it's just right here, easy access for your thumb. So if I wanted to do live view here, versus live view here, it is a little easier to get to on the K3. I would have preferred seeing those buttons, put back to where they were before, or at least putting the live view button here or something like that. So I like having to be able to view and being able to delete right from my one hand here instead of having to use two hands of reaching across. So another thing I noticed with these cameras is when you're actually filming video on the K3, I don't know if you can hear this in this video or not. It makes like a white noise sound as it's going. I'm guessing this is because of the sensor. If you guys know the actual reason, you can let me know in the comments below. But it makes a white noise sound, whereas you don't really get that inside of the K1 when it's doing video. So just an interesting thing to note. It doesn't really appear much in the video sound, especially since you shouldn't be using the audio from the device itself. But it is definitely noticeable. Same thing in terms of noise. the focusing motor on the K3 is much louder than the K1. You know, most people probably, unless you had them side by side, you probably wouldn't have any issues with either one of them. But after having the K1 for a little while, the K3 motor is pretty loud and whiny in comparison. Another thing that's different is how to get to the video modes here. So get the video mode inside of the K3, it's actually pretty easy. There's just a switch here, a little toggle. So up, down, down for pictures, up for video. And that's all it takes. Again, you can do it all with one hand here. It actually took me a little while to figure out how to do it on the K1 because I was like, where is the same button? There's a toggle right here on top. Kind of hard to see. You can see the little tiny picture right there, and you can toggle it right there. Not a big deal, but again, it's hard to get to with one hand, so you really have to kind of stop what you're doing and get to it. Whereas inside of the K3, if you wanted to switch to video, here, video, there, picture, 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 picture. Whereas in the K3, on the K1, it's kind of like, okay, well, hold on 1 second. Okay, now hold on 1 second. Okay, so if you're kind of going back and forth between the two, it is definitely something a little better on the K3. Then again, Pentax has never really been known for doing good video inside of their DSLRs. These both still only do 1080p. The autofocus is not really present inside of videos, but at least you have a little bit easier option inside of here on the K3. There are some definite advantages to the K1 overall. Obviously, there are more wheels, there are more settings. It's a much more manual camera than the K3 is. And I'm not going to really go over those benefits. Having the ability to adjust my ISO here is much easier than pressing the ISO button here, then adjusting with the wheel, then trying to get back to it. So in those things, I'm not going to really cover in this video. I'm really trying to cover some of the things that are different that you may not see in the spec sheet. So one of the first things I noticed when I was taking pictures is that on a K3, you press the button. Very digital, very tactile. I know exactly when I took a picture. There is still a little bit of space so you can do just the focus without pressing click, but I know exactly when I take a picture. Inside of the K1, there is no tactile click. So sometimes I was like, I just want to focus. I want to focus. Oh, I took a picture. I don't actually. There's no way for me to know exactly how far down the trigger is on that. So it's definitely just something to kind of get used to. I would have preferred if it had a tactile click. If anybody knows why they got rid of that, or maybe I just have a bad model, who knows? Please let me know. But yeah, over here on the left side, most things pretty much the same. The biggest difference is you do have now a headphone jack. Not too important, since again, these aren't really good at doing pictures, or they're great at doing pictures, not good at doing video. So definitely something to be aware of there. But other than that, the cameras perform very much the same. The menu is a little different inside of the K1 versus the K3, so you might have a little bit of trouble trying to figure out exactly where some of your settings are right off the beginning. So, and some of the descriptions in terms of, what things are inside of the camera aren't that good. So you will be kind of looking around in your manual to figure out what some of these things actually are. So if you don't know what these little pictures mean, you definitely will have to go look into what the meaning are inside of the manual, because it does not really define to you. But for the most part, everything is pretty straightforward. It's just the additional options kind of push some things around inside of the K1. Some of the other things we noticed on the K1 in particular, they do have a lot of the same features, but it does have the light feature here on the K1. So you actually can turn the light on and off. You can see it a little right here in the video. This light's turning on and off. And then there's the lights here, which may or may not turn on when the camera's off, but there is lights here that do turn on and off. I kind of wish there was a sensor on the camera here that would enable that, just to make it a little bit easier instead of having to be find this button up here, but that's just kind of a little nitpicky thing that I found when I was using the camera. Overall, I really like the K-1. I prefer using it now than I do than using the K-3, especially since it can pretty much do the same things. In my case, especially for doing videos, shooting video on the K-1 is a little bit better because you actually can shoot 1080p in crop mode or in full frame mode, which means that you do get an extra zoom range on top of what your lens is actually capable of, or being able to get a little further back if you're using an entire sensor. So it's definitely a plus. And having stereo speakers or stereo microphones on the camera itself does help in a pinch. Overall, I just prefer using the K-1 to the K-3, but there is no issue with the K-3 in terms of video quality. The quality is exactly the same. It's just a few extra niceties inside the K-1, which is expected for a camera that costs, roughly twice, sometimes even 3 times the cost. Thanks for watching, guys. This is LH Low Tech, and this has been a quick comparison of the K-1 and the K-3 by Pentax. If you have any other questions, things you want us to kind of compare, contrast, take pictures of, let us know. Subscribe.